here.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so what's the first kind of injury that you recall?
What, the first big injury I ever had when I was wrestling?
Yeah.
That's a good one. My nose. So it was about my third match in, and I was freezing up. The guy I was wrestling, a guy called Mal, and Mal, short for Malcolm, and he told me to loosen up a couple of times, and I was just frozen. I wasn't really a good guy or a bad guy. I was just a young guy, and he was the villain. And it's just a bit of sort of like just raw meat that he was just going to bully up and make himself look like a bigger bad guy to have a match later on in the show. So I was just the sacrificial lamb. And I froze up, messed up a couple of things because I was too nervous about the crowd. So he told me to grit my teeth, which was an old school way of saying something's going to hurt now for real. And I just felt his forearm go across my face in a sort of smashing motion. Then he held his wrist and pulled, and one of the strangest feelings of my life to feel my nose slowly break. Usually if a nose breaks it goes quite quickly, but he just pulled and pulled and pulled, a bit like a choke, but across my nose, and I felt my nose give and blood went everywhere, and I guess I loosened up enough then because he didn't beat me up afterwards, and shook my hand afterwards, which is an old school thing in wrestling, that you take punishment, but because you take it without complaint, that you're an okay sort of guy. So yeah, it took a few weeks to heat up. Nice pair of black eyes.
You ever broken a kind of major limb?
Yeah, well, 2 arthritic hips was probably the worst one. I fractured my neck and 2 degenerative discs in my lower back. So never broke the arms, broke the ankles. Never broke the arms. Never broke the femur or anything like that. None of the big bones, but all the joints have.
What happened with the ankle?
So the ankles, a few times, but probably the best one I ever did was when, in terms of best, in terms of like the most memorable was in Butlins of all places, which is actually quite a big thing in wrestling in England. You earn quite a lot of money and get quite regular bookings in Butlins, and I'd gone over the top rope. I misgrabbed the rope, and rather than gracefully fall into the floor, which looks painful but actually isn't, it looked terrible, and I really hurt myself. I sort of ended up cross-legged sitting on the ground, and one ankle bent under the other, and I audibly heard one go. I thought, okay, in a weird sick sort of way, thought I can work around that. Like, I know it was one bad ankle, I could sort of like hop around a little bit and carry on the match, but then I realised trying to stand up and the other one had gone as well. It's only when I got backstage and took my boots off that they both started swelling up by balloons. I thought I broke them both, but I'd broke one and fractured the other one.
So those are like kind of in-match injuries. What about sort of cumulative things that have happened throughout the career?
I think that the big one for me were the hips. So it was misdiagnosed as sciatica for quite a few years, and I couldn't tell you any one match that did it, but there were times when I'd get out of a match and my legs were feeling a bit numb, or my feet were feeling a bit numb, or my fingers were feeling tingly, and dead leg. That is. I honestly remember the one day where it had been a few days after my last match. I was recovering, and I got out of bed, went to meet some friends, and I just remember sitting on a wall talking to them, or sitting against a wall, and just saying that my leg felt really funny, like a dead leg, and I just didn't realise why my leg was going numb. And that night, pain like I'd never felt before in my life, like the sort of pain that the best way I can describe it is like having a toothache in your spine. It's just pain that makes you sweat. And then that was there with me for about 8 years, on and off. Like, I couldn't take a single step without feeling it in my leg or down my back. And it's like a broken ankle, broken thumb, wrist, whatever, broken nose. You can put yourself in a certain position where it doesn't hurt, but with hip pain or sciatica, if you lay down, it hurts. If you stand up, it hurts. If you see it lay against the wall, it hurts. There's no way to avoid the pain, and it's with you constantly, and it starts to affect you emotionally really badly as well.
Yeah. And what's your most?
There's my ankle there. Yeah.
What's your most kind of memorable injury that you got?
Easily, well, it was because it was part of showmanship that went out of control. Was when I had my head split open. In wrestling, there's a thing called blading, where you carry razor blades. There's some crazy wrestlers used to carry them in their mouths. I never knew how they did that, like, underneath their tongue. Yeah, good luck with that razor blade in your mouth, pretending to get punched and doing flips. But apparently it was done. But I used to carry it in my wrist tape, which is also a little bit, at least it's not the inside of the wrist. And at a certain point in the match, it's actually my best friend. He was the best man at my wedding. He hit me with a chair, and I bladed a little bit in my forehead. And then he hit me with the chair again, which we hadn't really worked out, but he felt it was needed, and I sort of set myself up for it. The only thing was, he was all too in the moment and broke the chair over my head, which then ripped open the cut a lot bigger than it needed to be, like the razor cut it needed to be. And I ended up losing about a pint of blood in the ring. My head stuck to the canvas, and then they had to throw away all of the... Well, it's not a lot of padding, but they had to throw away the carpeting between the canvas and the boards of the wrestling ring afterwards, because it soaked through so much they couldn't wash all the blood out.
You ever see that Eddie Guerrero and JBL?
Yeah, it was about that. It was at the end of the match. I still have the videotape where he beat me with a choke, and I passed out to it, and I gave up. And the blood is pumping out like a faucet. Like it's actually pumping out in time to my heartbeat. And the referee's like saying the match is over, but out of character, it's actually started going like he's not feeling too well because a lot of blood was coming out.
Is that the scar that I can see right now?
Yeah, that's the scar on my forehead right now. There's about actually 4 up there. So yeah, I've bladed about 6 times in 22 years. So I was always, one of the things that was always drummed into me by my teacher, Andre Baker. He said, don't cut yourself unless it means something or they're paying you a lot of money. Which is pretty good, right? Pretty good to live it off by. So when the bout starts, we always circle each other. It's my job as the veteran to make him look good. For all of you to hate me, it's a lot easier than for you to love him. So the easy way to signal the start of a match is to slap the shoulders and think we're going to do a tight, a simple way, a simple entrance to the match. And even though we're struggling, I'm just telling you to calm down and breathe. Now, as a veteran, I should establish dominance first of all. An arm block. I know it's a cheer me. I really do. And I'm making this look easy. When it's time, I'll give him the double squeeze. Just means it's time for him to reverse it. I'll show him a frustration. I'll try and cheat to get the advantage back. But he's pretty good. Until I get pissed off and push him away. What are you looking at? You cheer for him? Yeah. Cheers, you'll get all right, Broderick. Right, see what strength you've got.